What's up, everybody? MG Marcas Grant along with Michael F. Florio, and welcome to the fantasy offseason. I guess, Florio, they call us the offseason, but I feel like for us, fantasy never sleeps. So, what are you doing with your time right now?
Yeah, it never sleeps. The only difference is during the off season, you can dive a little bit deeper, maybe, do a little research on stuff that during the season just might slide through the cracks because there's so much to prepare for each week. So still doing fantasy football stuff, just a little bit better pace, I would say.
That sounds good. So, right now, what we want to do is kind of look back and then look ahead. Let's start, though, with the guys who were on the most championship teams in 2020, and really not a surprise if you look at the names on this list. Alvin Kamara, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce, who was head and shoulders the top tight end, Calvin Ridley with a breakout year, Josh Allen was fantastic, Darren Waller cementing himself among the elites, Justin Jefferson, James Robinson, Justin Herbert, your top rookies on this list, and then Aaron Jones, who I think defied a lot of the expectations and had another fantastic season for the Green Bay Packers. So, now, taking that list into account, Florio, when you look back at 2020 and then look ahead to 2021, which guy on that list we just saw is most likely to repeat and be on that list again in 2021?
For me, I'm going with Travis Kelce there. Marcus, we talk all the time about how shallow the tight end position is, and yet here is Travis Kelce giving us wide receiver one numbers from the tight end position. He has been the top scoring fantasy tight end 5 straight seasons, but this year put up a career high in fantasy points, catches, yards, and touchdowns. He was a top 5 tight end in 13 of his 15 games that he played, and he is tied once again to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid with all those great pieces around him. This year, we will not be asking if Travis Kelce is a first-round pick. We are just going to be asking how early in the first round should we take Travis Kelce. And if you draft him, I think you're going to once again be feeling like a league winner in 2021.
It is amazing how much we are going to be coveting, I think, Travis Kelce in drafts based on what he did this past season. But I'm going to go with another tight end, the guy who was, I would say, behind him. Not on his heels, but definitely behind him in terms of production, and that was Darren Waller. And coming into this year, I think a lot of people, myself included, felt like it might be tough for Waller to sort of repeat with the Raiders going out and adding a lot of wide receiver help. Could Darren Waller get 90 catches again in 2020? The answer was yes, and then he surpassed 100 catches this past year and then had a career high 9 touchdowns on top of it, and really has put himself among the elites at the position, a position that, as you mentioned, is really shallow, where we want as much help as we can get. And so Darren Waller is going to be a guy that's going to come off the board in the first few rounds and think has a really good chance to continue to be extremely productive for a lot of folks in fantasy football.
Yeah, Waller finished like 35 fantasy points behind Kelce last year, and there was no other tight end within 100 points of Waller. So those two guys give you a huge advantage at the thinnest position in fantasy.
So those are the guys most likely to repeat as league winners in 2021. Let's go to the flip side, the guys who are least likely to show up on that list in 2021. And so, Florio, who do you got there?
I think this is going to come off as a spicy take that some might not like, but I'm saying Alvin Kamara here. With no Drew Brees, we got the first taste of life without Drew Brees this past season, where there was a month where Taysom Hill was the Saints starting quarterback. And in that month, Alvin Kamara averaged just 14 fantasy points per game compared to nearly 30 with Drew Brees. The catches were down almost a third. And then the targets were less than half with Hill than with Brees. So were the receiving yards. It was night and day. And maybe it won't be Taysom Hill as the Saints starting quarterback, but we know it won't be Drew Brees. And to me, that is a huge hit to Alvin Kamara's safety and the value that he brings, because Brees would just dump it to him 8, 9, 10 times a game. I don't know if we can trust that this season.
It is not only the end of an era in New Orleans, but the end of an era in fantasy, and it is really going to dramatically change, I think, what happens with that Saints offense. It's going to leave Alvin Kamara and a whole lot of guys in limbo. We're going to be scrambling to try to figure out how to evaluate them. For me, I'm going to go with James Robinson. And he was absolutely fantastic this past year, but I also think he sort of took advantage of some good fortune in the sense that there was no one else there in Jacksonville to really compete with him for opportunity. Once the Jaguars let go of Leonard Fournette, then you had Raquel Armstead, who unfortunately had to sit out because of COVID. Divine Ozigbo had his issues all season long. It was the James Robinson show. And I will be very surprised if we see that happen again in Jacksonville next season, throw in the fact that the Jaguars are very likely to have Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback and are going to give him the keys to the kingdom. It's going to be an offense centered around him. I really have a hard time imagining a situation where James Robinson sees the same volume of touches in 2021 that he did in 2020. I don't think he's going to become a worse player, but I do think it's going to be an offense less geared toward getting a running back a volume of touches, and that is going to make it hard, I think, for James Robinson to produce at the same level next year.
Yeah, he had nearly 90% of the running back touches there. That is just such a high number, and I don't think you can exactly count on it. I agree. I think they're going to bring someone in just to give him breaks at times, if anything else.
All right, so we go from guys that may not be league winners in 2021 to a way too early pick of a guy that wasn't on the list this past year that could show up there this year. When I saw this topic, I immediately knew who you were going to pick. So let's suspense with any of the drama. Who is your way too early league winner for 2021?
Jonathan Taylor. If you have watched, like Marcus said, any of the shows that I've been on, I've been driving the hype train for Jonathan Taylor. And in a weird rookie year with no preseason, where we've seen him kind of at times pushed aside for Jordan Wilkins and Naheem Hines, he still finished as the RB6 in total points and the RB10 in points per game. And in fact, only Saquon Barkley since 2018. He's the only rookie running back to score more than Jonathan Taylor did this year. The O-line is still going to be there, and I believe with Frank Reich, the offense is still going to continue to run through Jonathan Taylor like it did the second half of this season. And running behind that O-line, I think top 5 running back is very much within reach. And he may cost late first, second round pick, but I think he could still return a positive investment on that value.
I do think the Jonathan Taylor hype train is getting very full very quickly. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, do so soon because it's leaving the station in a hurry. For me, I'm going to go with another guy who had a great rookie year, and that was Antonio Gibson in Washington. And this was a guy coming into the season we sort of liked, because the seas sort of parted for him to step in and get a large workload, and he took great advantage of it. We didn't really know what he would do as a running back because it wasn't something he did a lot of when he was in college, but he took the job and, no pun intended, absolutely ran with it this past year. We know he can catch the football effectively, and if Washington decides they want to move on from J.D. McKissic, that could open up some more targets for a guy like Gibson in that offense. They still need to figure out the quarterback position, but I think because of the usage and how they use him, I think there's going to be an opportunity for Gibson to be another solid producer in 2021. Throw in the fact that you're not going to have to spend a first-round pick. Maybe you can get him late second, early third round. I think the potential for the return on your draft investment is going to be high for a guy like Antonio Gibson in 2021.
Yeah, Marcus, he looked like an RB1 as a rookie, and he had no preseason and had just 33 carries in college. He was learning the position on the fly, and now imagine if they just start throwing him the ball even more. The sky is the limit.
It's going to be fantastic to watch this year. And again, I think there's still going to be at least a minor draft discount on him, provided, the hype train doesn't get out of control, which I think we're sort of adding to as we talk about him this very moment. But for more of your fantasy needs, you can check us out across all the socials at NFL Fantasy. Please do. We'll have advice and lots of fun things for you there all season long. Plus, for more advice and fun things, you can check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/NFL Fantasy Football. Enjoy the quote unquote off season. I will talk to you soon.